The HH-53's side door gunner used a minigun to unleash a fierce barrage of tracer fire that licked the structures below. Sergeant Westbrook sat in the cabin, huddled close to Captain Daniel, both anxiously awaiting the helicopter to take them to the landing zone. At that moment, urgent calls echoed in everyone's earpieces. Alternate plan green, alternate plan green. This is the History and Weapons channel, dedicated to military history and events on YouTube. Please subscribe to my channel. Your support means a lot to me. This video tells the story of the raid on the SON TAY prisoner of war camp in Vietnam in 1970. The operation is considered one of the most famous rescue missions carried out by the U.S. military during the Vietnam War. It was also the first joint special operations mission conducted under the direct control of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, marking a milestone in the development of U.S. Joint Special Operations capabilities. In 1970, the United States received intelligence from aerial reconnaissance indicating that a structure in SON TAY was being used as a North Vietnamese military prison camp. The camp held 55 American prisoners of war, 6 of whom were in critical condition and required urgent medical attention. This information served as the starting point for the rescue mission. In fact, much of the information was provided by the prisoners themselves. Clothes and soil were used to create coded messages, allowing U.S. intelligence analysts to identify information from aerial photography. However, assaulting the prison camp carried enormous risks due to the 12,000 North Vietnamese troops stationed within a 5-mile radius. Rescuing American prisoners of war could alleviate anti-war pressure within the United States, boost the morale of the U.S. military, and exert pressure on North Vietnamese negotiators from a political standpoint. On May 8, 1970, Brigadier General James R. Allen, the Deputy Director of Plans and Policies at the U.S. Air Force Headquarters, met with Brigadier General Donald Blackburn, the Special Assistant for Counterinsurgency and Special Activities in the Army, to discuss the mission to the rescue of the POWs. General Blackburn, a renowned guerrilla warrior, led thousands of guerrilla fighters against the Japanese in the Philippines during World War II. He also commanded the famous SOG unit during the Vietnam War. Blackburn reported directly to General Earl G. Wheeler, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. General Wheeler authorized the formation of a 15-member planning team, codenamed Polar Circle, to assess the feasibility and risks of the assault operation and to develop detailed plans. One team member who served as a helicopter pilot participated in the raid. The SON TAY prison camp was situated 30 kilometers northwest of Hanoi, the capital of North Vietnam. The area was heavily defended, with powerful SAM-2 anti-aircraft missile sites and hundreds of anti-aircraft guns. North Vietnam's MiG fighter planes also guarded the area. Although there were 12,000 North Vietnamese soldiers deployed within a few miles of the prison camp, the U.S. military still developed a daring plan for an airborne assault. The U.S. Army would use 6 helicopters to transport 56 commandos into the target area and bring them back. The helicopters would depart from air bases in Thailand. 5 of the helicopters are HH-53 Super Jolly Green Giants, codenamed Apple 1 to Apple 5, and one is an HH-3 Jolly Green Giant, codenamed Banana. The planning staff established parameters for a nighttime raid. The key requirements were clear weather and a quarter moon at 35 degrees above the horizon to ensure optimal visibility during low-level flight. Based on these parameters, 2 mission windows were identified, 1825 October and 1825 November. The helicopter fleet will depart from Tak Ly Air Force Base in Thailand. They will fly at low altitude along carefully planned routes to avoid detection by North Vietnamese radar. An MC-130 Combat Talon, codenamed Cherry 1, will serve as a lead aircraft to guide the helicopter fleet due to their lack of long-distance navigation capabilities for nighttime flights. This will be a challenging task as the MC-130 will fly at near-stall speeds. The Air Force will deploy 5 A-1 Sky Raiders, codenamed Peach, to provide fire support for the operation. Another MC-130E, codenamed Cherry 2, will lead them. The A-1 squadron will take off later than the helicopter fleet and follow a zigzag flight path. They will arrive nearly simultaneously with the slower helicopters in the target area. At higher altitudes, the U.S. Air Force will deploy 2 EC-121T aircraft for airborne control. HC-130P will provide aerial refueling services for the fleet. 10 F-4 fighter jets will provide air cover to prevent North Vietnamese MiG fighters from approaching. Additionally, 5 F-105 Wild Weasel fighter jets will carry Shrike missiles to suppress North Vietnamese SAM missile defense systems. Upon reaching the target area, the lead MC-130 will drop Blalo-27B napalm bombs and ground battle simulators at a distance from the POW camp. The simulators, which are metal cans filled with fireworks, produce sounds resembling intense gunfire when activated. This will mislead the North Vietnamese forces to the wrong location. The helicopter fleet includes the HH-3 helicopter, codenamed Banana, which will carry the 14-member assault team, codenamed Blue Boy. They will land directly inside the POW camp. Due to the limited open space and surrounding trees, the HH-3 helicopter will perform a forced landing, anticipating damage. After completing the mission, it is expected to be abandoned and destroyed by explosives. The assault team members will join the rescued prisoners on the remaining 5 HH-53 helicopters for evacuation. The Blue Boy team is responsible for rescuing the prisoners. The HH-53, codenamed Apple 1, will carry the 22-member support team, codenamed Green Leaf. Their mission is to breach a large hole in the south wall of the POW camp, allowing members of the Blue Boy team and the prisoners to evacuate from this point. They will also enter the POW camp, clear the buildings, and assume control of the entire facility. The HH-53, codenamed Apple 2, will transport the security team, codenamed Red Wine, consisting of 20 members. The southern part of the POW camp will also be targeted. Nearby structures will be cleared, bridges over the river will be destroyed, and a defensive position will be established to prevent any North Vietnamese soldiers from approaching the camp. Red Wine will send a squad to clear an area for evacuation. At the end of the operation, everyone will board helicopters from the evacuation point. Each of the 3 teams has backup plans in place. If any team encounters unexpected difficulties and cannot carry out its mission, other teams will replace them and complete the tasks. Each team has a forward air controller who guides the Peach Squadron, providing airborne support. This outlines the entire plan. The plan underwent numerous improvements during subsequent training and preparation phases before reaching its final form. For example, the Army initially planned to use UH-1 helicopters to land inside the POW camp due to their compact and agile nature. However, during practical training and experimentation, it became clear that the UH-1 had limited range, insufficient internal space, and difficulty accommodating an adequate number of assault team members into the POW camp. Additionally, prolonged periods in the cramped space of the UH-1 could cause discomfort for the soldiers. As a result, the Army ultimately abandoned the UH-1 option and instead opted for the use of Air Force HH-3 helicopters in the plan. The plan has entered the preparation and implementation phase, codenamed Ivory Coast. The Army Special Forces, known as the Green Berets, were assigned the ground assault mission. Colonel Arthur D. Simons, also known as Bull, due to his personality, assumed the role of deputy commander for the project. Simons participated in numerous combat missions during World War II in the Pacific Theater. One of the most famous was the raid at Cabanatuan, where Allied commandos rescued 500 Allied prisoners of war from Japanese captivity. When the Vietnam War began, Colonel Simons served as a Special Forces commander in Laos. He engaged in activities such as training local forces and establishing the White Star Mobile training teams, which effectively countered North Vietnamese infiltration. Colonel Simons earned a high reputation within the Green Berets due to his experiences. Colonel Simons was also an old acquaintance of General Blackburn, a crucial factor in assigning him this task. Within the Army Special Forces, Colonel Simons recruited hundreds of volunteers, selecting 15 officers and 82 soldiers, including both regular and reserve personnel. Among them were two particularly notable officers, Captain Richard J. Meadows, who became the youngest sergeant in the U.S. Army during the Korean War at the age of 20, later joined the Special Forces and became one of the first American soldiers to undergo training with the SAS. He participated in military operations in Oman as an SAS member. Upon returning to the United States, Meadows played a key role in forming the 8th Special Forces Group in Panama. He then volunteered for service in Vietnam, where he demonstrated outstanding performance in Southeast Asian operations and received a battlefield commission from General William Westmoreland. Captain Meadows will command the Blue Boy team in the direct rescue of the prisoners. Lieutenant Colonel Elliot P. Sidner, a veteran of the Korean War in the SAS, and now headmaster of the Ranger Infantry School at Fat Benning, cost Simons a great deal of talk to poach him. Lieutenant Colonel Sidner was chosen by Simons to be the commander of the ground forces. Here, as Bull Simons' role would be the on-scene eyes and ears of the Joint Contingency Task Group, in constant contact with General Manner. General Manner was the overall commander of the raid. He was also an experienced Air Force commander, having participated in hundreds of combat missions from the beginning of World War II through the Vietnam War, particularly in Southeast Asia, where he was a widely trusted and respected commander. The Army Special Forces established a training base at Eglin C-2 Range in Florida. Based on intelligence, they constructed a 1.1 replica of a POW camp using white cloth and wood. Intelligence officers were initially concerned that this training site might be captured by Soviet satellites and identified by Soviet intelligence as the SON TAY prison camp, potentially exposing the raid plan to the Soviets. To alleviate these concerns, the U.S. Air Force conducted high-altitude reconnaissance of the training facility. After analyzing the aerial photographs, it was concluded that the images captured by Soviet reconnaissance satellites would not provide enough detail for them to recognize the replica as SON TAY prison camp. As a result, the assault team could confidently utilize the training site for their exercises. CIA experts also crafted a sophisticated sandbox model known as Barbara, valued at $60,000, and considering it was in 1970 US dollars, its high cost was attributed to the model's inclusion of a complex optical system. Required a special optical viewing device that could be placed anywhere inside this tabletop model. When one looked through its precisely scaled eyepiece, the scene would be magnified to life-size, and the viewer would find himself standing at any selected spot inside the prison compound. Barbara was named after Barbara L. Stroessneder, a secretary from the USF Directorate of Plans. She participated in the feasibility and operations planning efforts and often worked up to 18 hours a day to get the plans done. The assault teams were equipped with CAR-15 carbines, which are structurally similar to the M16 rifles commonly used by U.S. soldiers. However, they are distinguished by ultra-short barrels equipped with oversized flash suppressors and typically feature a collapsible stock. Most team members carried CAR-15 carbines, while 2 members were armed with standard M16 rifles. The standard M16 rifle magazines in use by the U.S. military at the time had a capacity of 20 rounds. For this mission, the Green Berets ordered 30-round magazines from Colt, which were recently developed. During operations, team members frequently carried both types of magazines at the same time. The assault team needed to engage in close-quarters combat and rescue prisoners at night, making their ability to shoot accurately in low light crucial. However, the U.S. military did not have suitable nighttime aiming devices for the team. Fortunately, the civilian market offered innovative tools. The supply team searched the commercial market for what they needed. They quickly found the single-point night sight, a sighting device that was effective and cost-efficient. This gadget allowed users to aim with both eyes, significantly enhancing reaction speed in close-quarter combat. All team members became experts in nighttime close-quarters shooting after incorporating this equipment into their gear through field testing. The mission required the use of shotguns. However, the Army's standard 12-gauge pump shotgun was unsuitable for building clearing requirements. A substitute, a 5-shot automatic 12-gauge duckbill shotgun sourced from a sporting goods catalog, proved to be more efficient and deadlier. 2 commandos carried 2 civilian shotguns. Furthermore, there were 4 machine gunners equipped with M60 machine guns, providing formidable firepower support for the assault team. During the operation, 4 team members carried M79 grenade launchers, which proved effective against enemies in buildings. Some members also carried M72 laws to address potential North Vietnamese vehicles and enemies entrenched in fortified positions. The assault team carried many stun grenades to clear rooms, especially in areas where prisoners might be present, to prevent unintentional injuries. The team members were equipped with explosives for bridge and building destruction. They also carried chainsaws and firefighting axes to open prison cells and clear helicopter landing zones. Additionally, they brought baby food specifically prepared for the tormented and physically weakened prisoners. Most of these supplies were procured from the commercial market, and some military standard equipment was modified to suit the requirements of this assault mission. In the air, Air Force crews flew 1,054 hours in southern Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, conducting dissimilar formation training with both UH-1 and HH-3 helicopters at night and at low altitude, and gaining experience with navigation training using forward-looking infrared, FLIR, which had not been part of the Combat Talon's electronic suite until Ivory Coast. A V formation was selected and refined for the mission, in which the slower helicopters were drawn in a line slightly above and behind each wing of the Combat Talon escort aircraft, to give the helicopters the speed necessary to keep up with the Talons flying just above stall speed. Special Forces training began on 9th September, progressing to night training on 17 September, and joint training with air crews on 28 September, with 6 trials a day, 3 of them at night. By 6 October, the Special Forces had conducted 170 training sessions on the mock-up, covering all or part of the mission, many with live fire. To celebrate the 25th anniversary of the United Nations, the White House delayed the raid during the first available time frame, as Nixon was wary of provoking communist nations. Finally, in late November, the order approving the operation was issued, and 4 C-141 transport planes were assigned to ferry the assault team members and equipment to Thailand. At this critical moment, the Defense Intelligence Agency received intelligence from a reliable source in Hanoi. The source claimed that the SON TAY prison camp was empty, no longer holding prisoners. It became a dry hole. Earlier aerial reconnaissance photos had also shown reduced activity within the camp, with weeds even growing in the courtyard. At the time, U.S. intelligence analysts interpreted the prohibition of outdoor activities as a sign of potential relocation of prisoners. They attempted to arrange a Blackbird reconnaissance flight, but technical issues caused the Blackbird to malfunction and make an emergency landing at the Thai base. The second window period had already arrived, so was the operation to be aborted. Conflicting intelligence emerged, suggesting that the prisoners had been returned to the camp. These contradictory reports left decision-makers in a dilemma. Defense Intelligence Agency Director Bennett recommended proceeding with the operation and informed the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Moorer. General Blackburn, and all those involved in the planning, shared the same sentiment. They had invested so much effort and prepared for so long that they could not accept the possibility of the prisoners being there without them. They would rather make the trip in vain than miss the opportunity. On the evening of November 20th, 1970, the operation began. The U.S. Navy launched a significant number of A-6 and A-7 attack planes from 3 aircraft carriers. These planes appeared over Haiphong Harbor in Vietnam, diverting the attention of North Vietnamese air defenses. Most of these aircraft carried only illumination flares due to President Johnson's bombing halt order. This created a spectacular fireworks display over the skies of Haiphong Harbor. The Air Force RC-121, F-4, and F-105 Wild Weasels took off one after another. Their mission was to support and protect the fleet heading towards SON TAY. At 22 hours, the MC-130 with the codename Cherry 2 took off, followed by Cherry 1, which experienced a delayed takeoff 23 minutes later due to mechanical issues. They served as guides for both the helicopter formation and those A-1 attack aircrafts, following the planned route towards SON TAY prison camp. After nearly 4 hours of flight, the fleet reached the airspace over the target area. Cherry 1 dropped illumination flares over the SON TAY prison camp and then proceeded eastward. At a distance of 2 miles from the camp, it released napalm bombs and combat simulators. Codenamed Apple III, HH-53 approached the POW camp with a mission to act as a gunship, using its mounted minigun to destroy the camp's watchtowers. Apple III's pilot quickly realized that he was approaching a yard that resembled the prison camp, but was marked on the map as the secondary school, located 400 meters south of the camp. Realizing the error, Apple III turned north and headed for the actual prison camp. Hovering over the camp, Apple III's minigun quickly obliterated several watchtowers at a rate of 4,000 rounds per minute. Apple III then flew west, landing in a rice paddy about 1.5 miles away, where it would wait for the mission to be completed before returning to pick up the prisoners. Following closely behind, HH-3 Banana turned north after Apple III, approaching the camp as it completed the task of destroying the watchtowers. Once Apple III had completed its mission, Banana descended into the open space at the center of the camp. The surrounding trees were taller and denser than expected, and the HH-3's rotor blades sliced through the treetops like a lawnmower. The HH-3 almost fell directly into the open space. Although the Blue Boy team members were lying on padded mats inside the helicopter, the force of the impact threw one of them out of the door. Fortunately, he was unhurt. Inside the cabin, a fire extinguisher was dislodged and struck the helicopter mechanic's ankle, fracturing it. This was the first casualty of the operation. However, the mechanic was so excited that he did not discover his injury until he was on his way back. As soon as Banana was stabilized, the Blue Boy team members rushed out. Captain Meadows, holding a megaphone, shouted, "We're Americans! Keep your heads down! We're Americans! This is a rescue! We're here to get you out! Keep your heads down! Get on the ground! We'll be in your cells in a minute!" The assault team, following their training, began the assault on the POW camp. Guards who appeared in front of them were quickly neutralized. The team used stun grenades to clear rooms and searched for prisoners with flashlights. In the air, following Banana, is Apple I, carrying the Green Leaf detachment with Colonel Simons on board. They were supposed to land outside the south wall of the POW camp. However, as Apple I was further away from Banana, they failed to notice that both Apple III and Banana had turned north. Apple I mistook the so-called secondary school for the POW camp and landed the Green Leaf team south of this courtyard. Colonel Simons sensed something was wrong as soon as the helicopter landed, as he hadn't heard Blue Boy engage in combat. By this time, Apple I had taken off, and all 22 members of the assault team had landed. Simons shouted to his radio operator to contact the Red Wine team to execute Alternate Plan Green and get that damn helicopter back. At that moment, enemies began to appear in the courtyard. The main building was a 2-story structure, and enemy soldiers inside began shooting at the Greenleaf team from the windows. Simons ordered the team to use all their firepower to take out the enemy. Still in the air, inside Apple II, Lieutenant Colonel Sidner and all the members of the Red Wine team saw gunfire in both courtyards ahead, and through their headsets, they heard Greenleaf's call, "Alternate Plan Green." It was clear that Greenleaf was unable to complete the mission, and Red Wine had to take over. Consequently, Apple II flew towards the prisoner of war camp and dropped the Red Wine team outside the south wall. Captain Meadows and his team searched for prisoners inside the prisoner of war camp. However, they found no prisoners or signs of habitation as they opened one cell after another. All the cells were empty, and one cell was even filled with cement. At this moment, Meadows heard the radio message that Red Wine was blowing up the south wall. A loud explosion, smoke dissipated, and from the collapsed wall, Red Wine's team walked in. They joined forces with Blue Boy's team to continue clearing the buildings inside the prisoner of war camp. Some buildings had numerous North Vietnamese soldiers inside, exhibiting intense firepower, but also considerable chaos. The assault team swiftly suppressed and eliminated them. At the secondary school to the south, Colonel Simons and his soldiers encountered a similar situation. The enemy seemed numerous, easily over 100, and notably taller than the typically shorter North Vietnamese soldiers. Despite their fierce counterattack, the sudden assault had left the enemy in disarray, lacking organization. The assault team used M60 machine guns to suppress the enemy's firepower, then continuously fired M79 grenades into the windows. Suddenly, perhaps igniting fuel or ammunition inside the building, the two-story structure exploded, blazing fiercely. The fire rapidly spread to 3 adjacent buildings, constructed with flammable materials like wood and bricks, resembling logs in a fireplace. The enemy started fleeing the structures, and Colonel Simon's assault team rushed into the courtyard, continuously shooting down the panicked enemy. They might have killed at least 100 enemies. These soldiers didn't appear to be North Vietnamese, and later intelligence suggested they were likely Soviets or Chinese, assisting the North Vietnamese in training to use anti-aircraft systems. Within 5 minutes, Greenleaf had eliminated the enemy forces in the secondary school, turning it into ruins. Apple I's mistake might have inadvertently helped the American riders, as this so-called school was, in reality, a military camp with over 100 soldiers, located just 400 meters from the prisoner of war camp. If it hadn't been attacked as per the original plan, these over 100 soldiers, under proper organization, could have posed a significant threat to the assault team. The pilot of Apple I dropped off Greenleaf, but promptly circled back to rejoin them after realizing the mistake. Greenleaf quickly returned to the helicopter, and Apple I guided them to the correct location, and things were back on track. The assault team members from Red Wine and Greenleaf then began executing their planned tasks. Their mission was to destroy bridges and pumping stations along the river, as well as clear a site to the south by cutting down trees and power poles. This would allow helicopters to evacuate personnel. The team had almost finished clearing the structures inside the prisoner of war camp, despite encountering up to 20 North Vietnamese soldiers in some buildings. They successfully eliminated all of them. During this process, a member of the Red Wine team had a close encounter with a North Vietnamese soldier. The soldier fired an AK-47 at the team member, hitting him with 4 bullets in the chest. Fortunately, the team member was also an explosives expert carrying several pounds of HMX. The thick explosive package absorbed the bullets, saving his life. He came close to being the first casualty among the riders. After the incident, the team member retaliated with a CAR-15 carbine, killing the North Vietnamese soldier. During the firefight, a team member was shot in the leg while attempting to throw a grenade. Fortunately, the wound was not fatal, and after receiving a simple bandage, the team member continued to engage in the battle. This was the only injury sustained by the assault team. During the Greenleaf team's combat at the school, Redwine encountered a personnel shortage while tasked with blowing up a wooden bridge. To address this, Lieutenant Colonel Sidner instructed the forward air controller to guide 2 A-1 Sky Raiders for an airstrike on the wooden bridge. The 2 A-1 Sky Raiders dropped white phosphorus incendiary bombs, causing the bridge to blaze. The assault team cleared power poles in the evacuation area using chainsaws and explosive charges. They even demolished a high-tension tower, causing electrical wires to spark violently in the rice paddies and plunging the nearby area into complete darkness. The assault team searched the entire compound twice, but found nothing. There were no prisoners. It was a dry hole. Although disappointing, the immediate concern was evacuation. The mission had to be completed within 30 minutes, as North Vietnamese reinforcements could arrive at any moment. A small team was sent 600 meters southeast to plant claymore mines and prevent personnel from approaching. Upon the arrival of a convoy of 4 trucks at the POW camp, a team member destroyed the first truck with an M72 Law, causing the convoy to halt. The team was recalled promptly as helicopters were waiting to evacuate them. All members of the assault team, including the 3 crew members of the damaged HH-3 Banana, boarded 2 HH-53s and flew away from the POW camp. Before departure, explosives were placed on the HH-3. As the team flew away, the Banana exploded, creating a dazzling fireball at the SON TAY POW camp. At this point, the North Vietnamese anti-aircraft systems had targeted this location, not the low-flying helicopter group, but the F-115 Wild Weasels providing high-altitude cover. On the helicopters, the crew witnessed SAM-2 anti-aircraft missiles launching from the enemy positions, heading into the sky. Unfortunately, one F-105 was hit, forcing the 2 pilots to eject. They landed conveniently near the return route of the helicopter group. 2 HH-53s were diverted from the formation to rescue the parachuting pilots. By dawn, both pilots were successfully retrieved. The assault team returned to the base in Thailand without losing a single member, but also without rescuing any prisoners. The disappointing news reached the Pentagon and the White House. Another intelligence error occurred, and the White House was eager to minimize the damage to the president's reputation. Various intelligence agencies began searching for a scapegoat. Was this a failed mission? Technically, yes. A mission to rescue prisoners ending empty-handed is considered a failure. However, from a military perspective, it was an extraordinary operation. 56 assault team members, through meticulous planning and rigorous training, penetrated the enemy's core area, accomplished all their tasks without losing anyone. Truly an exceptional operation. The courage and professional competence of these individuals deserve recognition and commendation. 4 of them were awarded Distinguished Service Crosses, and 50 received Silver Stars. After the release of American prisoners of war, many attested to the significant impact of the SON TAY raid on their ordeal. The North Vietnamese government, alarmed by the ease with which the U.S. military penetrated their core area, consolidated dispersed prisoners into the Hanoi Hilton. There, the treatment of prisoners improved, and they were able to form a community, providing mutual support and enduring until their release. More importantly, when they learned that their comrades had not given up on them and were working to rescue them, it instilled great confidence and courage in the prisoners. This is the History and Weapons channel. Please subscribe and support me. Your support is immensely valuable to me.